The water cycle starts from a body of water such as an ocean or a lake. The sun's heat will then cause the water molecules to become smaller and create gas molecules. Those molecules will then float up into the atmosphere. This is also called evaporation. The gas molecules will start clumping together and form bigger molecules. This is called condensation. Once the molecules are heavy enough, they will fall back down into the Earth's ground. This is called precipitation. The water cycle not only starts from a body of water typically, it can also occur from snow or ice through subjugation, solid to gas, and also from the leaves of plants through transpiration. As long as the sun shines, it can evaporate water and cause the cycle to repeat itself. The carbon cycle starts in the atmosphere and can go in many different ways to go back into the atmosphere. First way is through plants by a process called photosynthesis. To simplify the explanation, photosynthesis is basically when plants take carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and by a process called carbon fixation, the CO2 goes from a gas form to a solid form, which then the plant can use. The simplified formula is basically carbon dioxide plus water plus light energy, and it can be converted into glucose and oxygen. Glucose is used by plants in order to grow and reproduce, while oxygen is used by living beings in order to breathe and to live. Once the living being inhales and exhales, the carbon is then released back into the atmosphere. This is called respiration. Another way is if the plant is eaten by another organism, such as the pig or the bunny in this drawing. Once ingested and digested, the plant will become fuel for the animal and the carbon will stay in their body up until they poop it out or when they die. This applies to all living beings, so it includes plants as well. When that occurs, the carbon product will then enter the Earth's lithosphere, or the ground, and will be broken down by decomposers. The carbon will either go straight into the atmosphere from there or stays inside the ground for millions of years to form fossil fuel. This will then get extracted by humans to use as fuel to power their inventions like cars and factories. Once the fuel is burned through a process of combustion, the carbon is back into the atmosphere. The last way is when the carbon from the atmosphere is dissolved into water, which then the marine life could use in the form of calcium carbonate. They use this to build shells and skeletons. It can also turn into limestone. But once again, after the marine life dies or produces wastes, the carbon will sink to the bottom of the ocean. There it will form sedimentary rocks or fossil fuel after millions of years. They will then get extracted and burned, releasing carbon back into the atmosphere. The nitrogen cycle also starts in the atmosphere. We need nitrogen to make amino acids, which makes proteins, and protein makes DNA and RNA. Phosphorus is also needed to make DNA and RNA. Fun fact, the atmosphere is made up of 78% nitrogen, and even though humans need it, we can't inhale it like how we do with oxygen. That is why we rely on another source in order to absorb nitrogen. Surprise, surprise, it's through plants again. However, plants also can't just take nitrogen directly from the atmosphere. It needs to be fixed. That is why nitrifying bacteria exist. They help to break down the triple bond binding two nitrogen atoms in order for the plant to use the nitrogen. Nitrogen plus hydrogen will equal to ammonia by the process called nitrogen fixation. Lightning can also do this. The ammonia is toxic though, so it will go through another set of bacteria which combines ammonia with oxygen through a process of nitrification. From there, it turns into nitrite, and more nitrifying bacteria causes the nitrite to form nitrate. Finally, the plant is able to absorb nitrogen in the form of nitrate. This process is called assimilation. From here, the nitrogen can go either two ways. The plant containing nitrogen gets eaten by animals, and when the animal either dies or needs to take a dump, another bacteria called decomposers will break down the nitrogen from the animal's corpse or product waste, and through ammonification, the nitrogen can enter back into the cycle. Or the other way is that the nitrate will go through a process called denitrifying, where the nitrate goes through bacteria, like the name suggests, denitrifies the nitrogen, and it gets released back into the atmosphere. The phosphorus cycle is the only one that doesn't include the atmosphere in it. It starts from a rock. That is where phosphorus is found, especially from sedimentary rocks formed from the ocean floor and lake beds. The living things that die and sink to the bottom of these bodies of water will then build up over time and create phosphorus rocks. When the rocks get re-exposed, the water will start to erode the rocks and get dissolved by it. The water with phosphorus can now be available to the plants and animals. And when the living beings die, the decomposers will break the body down and help the phosphorus to break off as well, which leads to the phosphorus to go back to the ground, where it turns into phosphorus rocks again over a long period of time. This process can also go through marine life, and again, once the marine life dies, it sinks, piles up, and you guessed it, over a long period of time, it turns into phosphorus rocks, which gets uplifted into a mountain to get re-exposed, is then eroded and dissolved by water, and runs off back into a body of water where plants and animals use it. I forgot to mention, but water is important because all living being needs water. Plus, it is basically the best solvent. It dissolves anything. Carbon is also important because it's the fundamental building block for all living things. Carbon is in everything, in every living being, so it is needed. And like I said, phosphorus is needed because it helps to form DNA and RNA. I forgot that we needed to include what we use the cycles for in our lives. So, the water cycle, I use it when I shower, and I use it when I drink water. I use the carbon cycle by eating food. My steak last night was made from a cow who ate a plant that had carbon in it. Yeah. And that plant got really healthy and made the cow healthy because it got carbon, which made glucose. Yeah. For the nitrogen cycle, my salad from yesterday. Oh, the lettuce got fertilizer that has nitrogen and phosphorus. There we go, double whammy. Phosphorous cycle. My salad had nitrogen and phosphorus fertilizer, and it grew to be delicious. Mwah, scrumptious. Pack on some Italian dressing on there. Anyways, I should probably shut up now. Anyway, yeah. Okay, bye.